Hello there, ladies and gents. I'm the Hypersonic55, and I come back again with another film review. My film review today will be of Monsters, the British sci-fi drama, which was written, directed, and the cinematography all done by Gareth Edwards and stars Whitney and Scoot McNairy. And the basic plot of the film is two people happen to meet each other in Mexico and happen to find themselves in a situation where they have to leave Mexico and get back to America, but in order to do that they need to get to the border between America and the US, where there's an infected zone full of alien life forms. The film basically explains at the start that after a NASA deep space probe crash lands in Mexico, alien life forms were spread throughout the US and Mexico border region, leading to the quarantine of half of Mexico. So what happened was Now, the two main characters in the actual film are more or less the key to what makes this film work, but it's also the things that happen around them that make the film work as a whole as well. The film, at the start, introduces us to Andrew Cordler, who happens to be, I think, a journalist who happens to have a camera, always shooting things, trying to find something that will make, good newspaper material. And while he's on his travels, he happens to run into Samantha Wyndon. And you can tell straight from the start, when those two happen to see each other for the first time, you assume that something's going to go down, but you don't know how. Basically, you're wondering if Monsters is any good. Well, Monsters is a very, very interesting film, and I think it's a sleeper hit of the overall year. Like the way District 9 was not expected to be the smash hit that it was. This film also takes the concept of aliens, but doesn't make them the center stage. The aliens happen to play a sort of background character while they happen to come into play on a good few occasions and do get a fair degree of screen time. Well, they're not the main feature of the overall film. They happen to add to it. I have to say that I really did enjoy Monsters. I thought it was a really interesting film. At the start, you happen to see a fair degree of information that's laid out for you, so you understand the foundations of the overall situation. But it's also interesting to see how the overall plot develops around the characters and how the overall film progresses. Now, I have to say that the film is wonderful in terms of the way in which it looks and the way in which it was shot. The cinematography is just fantastic. So many of these landscape shots, especially in the sunrises and sunsets in these wonderful areas of Mexico, just look fantastic. And it makes you think, why don't I just go on holiday and check it out myself? Because there's always great things to stare at in this film. It's also interesting the way that certain scenes are choreographed, with the camera focusing on the character, but the character being in the left-hand corner of the screen, so it makes you think that something's going to come out, but nothing actually happens. It's always creating suspense, and what this film does well is create the concept of suspense and make you think that something's going to happen, but you don't know if it will or not. I also found the aliens in this film to be very, very interesting. The aliens in the film, while they don't happen to have as much screen time as, say, the aliens in District 9, they happen to have their moments where they shine on screen and do create some interesting scenes where you will be left in awe and be stunned by what you see. I also happen to make a few comparisons to films that I've seen in the past, like Jurassic Park, for one, in the sense that there's the suspense of being in a jungle, or should I say forest, where there's potential dangers that could go about and destroy you, but you don't know where they are. And when you see the aliens moving along in the background, it reminded me of when they happen to come across the T-Rex or the Brontosauruses for the first time, and they happen to be huge, massive creatures that we've never seen before, and they just look stunning on screen. I felt that the aliens in this film also brought that sort of similar effect as well. I also happen to make a comparison to District 9, which was one of my favourite films of 2009, hands down. And there's obviously a good number of similarities in terms of the aliens becoming sort of part of the problem that mankind has to deal with. Because in District 9, by the time the present day plot had taken place, the aliens had become residents of Johannesburg. In this film, the aliens had become more or less inhabitants of the area from Mexico and the US. And when comparing Monsters to District 9, the thing that I feel that District 9 had over Monsters was a little bit more creative flair in terms of the overall structure. Outside of all the drama and political aspects of the film, Monsters also happens to be a pretty funny film with a few scenes in there between the dangers, the suspense, and drama, there happens to be some funny scenes where Scoot happens to do a few things on screen that just makes you laugh, and some of the interaction between Scoot and Whitney is pretty good as well. So not only is the film well directed, written, and choreographed in terms of its shots and the cinematography, but also the film happens to look really nice in terms of the special effects used. The CGI used to go about and create these monsters looks really nice, and the aliens do look very well when you happen to see them on screen, whether they be in the background or having, like, some full-on screen time. And for a budget of only just under $500,000, I think the film is very well done, and it shows that the British film industry can go about and create some good films in the science fiction genre. And I don't think I could do this review without giving a special mention to the music that was done by John Hopkins, and he creates a very interesting soundtrack which is full of suspense, thriller-based elements, and it's very heartfelt and emotional with the different types of instruments that are used in the overall soundtrack. I think it's really good, and it's very enjoyable. The film is not only suspenseful, but it's also sort of funky and creepy at the same time. There are a lot of things that will sort of shock you visually, and it won't be from something just jumping out and scaring the living daylights out of you, but more so with the things that have been shot and the way in which they have been shot and presented towards you, which will make you think about how it was done and how brutal the situations would be if you were there. Overall, Monsters is a really good movie. Whitney Able and Scoot McNairy do really well to present themselves as these two main characters who happen to find themselves in this almost completely bleak situation where it looks like at any moment both of their lives could just be over. The whole concept of there being a borderline between the US and Mexico to section off these creatures, I find to be a really interesting concept. And next to District 9 is another one of those sort of examples of when a sci-fi film takes the concept of aliens, it doesn't have to be all about disaster and like everything always getting blown up. It can actually have some thought and meaning behind it. So I would give the film an 8 out of 10. I wouldn't say it's as good as District 9 because District 9 in itself was just a very original piece of work. If you enjoyed District 9, you will be able to appreciate what Monsters does. Well, thanks for listening to my review. Hopefully you found it informative, and yeah, look out for the next review on the way throughout December. So until then, this is me, the Hypersonic 55, signing out.